Hello, this is Andres Useche. I'm continuing the conversations with great filmmakers, and I'm very happy to have with us Frankie Pine, music supervisor, nominated for an Emmy for her recent show, Daisy Jones and the Six, in which music plays a huge role now showing on Prime. How are you doing, Frankie?
I'm great. How are you, Andres?
Doing all right.
I'm
Um,
excited to be here.
Yes, and music is a huge part of my life. But first, I'd like to start with a little bit of your backstory. How you got into music, what songs meant the most to you in your life. How did you get inspired to become involved in music supervision?
Well, I was lucky. I grew up in a family that was filled with music. My dad was, one of those roving DJs, and my entire family on my mom's side of the family played country music. So whether it was guitar or banjo, so it was a very active music family. And obviously for me, I was like, I played piano, I was a singer, and really wanted to kind of go down that artist path. And when you kind of get to that point where you realize quite as dedicated to this as I should be in order to be successful at it, I kind of looked at it and just said, all I want to do then is to promote people, promote music, promote artists, promote songwriters, anything that I can do to kind of help them get heard and seen. And I ended up falling into this music supervision world. I didn't even really knew that it existed. I was working for a record label in New York, and I got offered a job to go to LA, and I just kind of learned on the fly how to do it. And for me, like music, like I said, has been such a huge part of my life. And in fact, one of the songs in Daisy Jones, when they are, you know, basically doing a video of their Christmas time together. One of the songs is this Tammy Wynette Christmas song
Mhm.
that happened to just fall perfectly within the time period. And that is an album that I've listened to my whole entire life as a kid. And so to get one of those songs in there was just such a huge like get for me, just because it made me smile on the inside.
Right. So you were already, very passionate about music, a musician yourself. Um, when did it become, when did you put the images and the music together in your mind as a career path? When did you start doing music consulting? I think you've done some great movies when you started as a music consultant. How did you get to that point?
It literally is just, you work your way through it. Like
Hmm.
um I happen to know music licensing, so I kind of came from a music licensing standpoint,
Hmm.
which also allowed me to know a lot of catalog.
Hmm.
And I also happen to be kind of a walking jukebox, as I've been
Hmm.
called, where someone can go, oh, what is the lyric of that? And then all of a sudden I could just kind of sing it.
Uh-huh.
So I just feel like I just worked my way into, you know, knowing such a big backdrop of music that, it's one of those things like, hey, why don't we try this song here? What do you think that would, sound like or look like to picture? And a
Hmm.
lot of times, like, it kind of immediately. And then other times you just have to see it, and you kind of see what it does for you. How, like music has always moved me. And I have a photographic memory. So I have like everything I kind of memorize is visual. So when you kind of put the two together, it kind of, works some magic. Sometimes it doesn't work magic, but most of the time it works magic.
Let's see. And just very quickly, because I'm so curious about this period of time, formative period of time for you, when you were doing music consultancy for Traffic and Ocean's 11, The Big Lebowski. What was that experience like? What did your job entail at that point in your history?
It was pretty easy then. It was literally kind of just managing the process, making sure that things were getting done in a timely manner. Whether or not something could be licensed versus something that can't be licensed. you know, throwing ideas out and just kind of seeing if they stick. It's, you know, it's not a completely intensive, you know, immersive world of music supervision, but
Hmm.
you know, it depends on the project. You know, sometimes I just came on to kind of help guide the process. And then there's other times where you're fully immersed and doing every aspect of music. And you know, every project was different. You know, the oceans projects were more like, hey, you know, we can't find this and we can't get this song, but what about this instead? um you know, because there was a huge creative team already on that. I was just kind of be the person that said, yeah, we can get that, and if we can't get that, then here's some other options for you. You know, so consulting is the easy part of the gig.
Hmm.
Like getting into true music supervision is definitely more of you know, the nuts and bolts of everything, you know,
And,
that you're supposed to be doing.
and what was that first project where you assumed the responsibility of music supervision, where you feel that you really fell into your own, like, and you had the authority to choose and
Honestly, it was the very first movie I ever did.
Mhm.
It was a film called Nurse Betty,
Mhm.
um, that starred Renee Zellweger. Morgan Freeman was in it, and you know, it was Greg Kinnear. It literally was this movie about a very innocent girl who um, got knocked on the head and truly believed that she was in love with this soap opera star, Greg Kinnear.
Mhm.
And, you know, one of the things, like, think musically on that really I feel like helped that movie kind of come to life is the fact that the music was just as innocent as she was.
Mhm.
And that is what led us to believe that this truly could happen and that she truly did love this soap opera star. So, you know, I think it's about finding that right tonality of something that works for the characters. You want the music. I mean, look, it's easy to pick a bunch of songs, right? But do they work for that character? Do they really kind of tie in to the story? Do they you know, do they help tell the story? Like when you hear it lyrically, does it help you kind of come into that world more than maybe some other song may or may not have done? I mean, I
Mhm.
think it's really the skill of being a really good music supervisor is really kind of finding the tonality of your characters and knowing your characters. And I think that's what's so great about, you know, this job is it's not only just knowing or knowledge of music, it's reading a script and kind of taking a feeling away from it and really kind of diving into that person or that story and what is going to help tell that story.
Filmmaking is storytelling. Music itself is storytelling, the way I see it, and the lyrics are powerful. A lot of those songs may be already embedded in our minds, and we have associations with them. The songwriter may have a story that they were telling. Um, so how do you balance all that with the tone of a specific film and the arc of the characters that you want to track when you have this sort of competing ideas sometimes, and sometimes I know they align perfectly well, but tell me a little bit about those challenges when it's challenging or when it's magical.
One of the things that one of the shows to me that really, you know, dove into the telling of the story and using music to help tell that story was Nashville. You know, these were all unknown songs, you know, nobody knew them, you know, to kind of like be able to recognize, like when there's certain songs that I hear and I immediately go back to a certain movie. Like to me, like on what was the Silence of the Lambs, you know, like that movie, there's like one song in that whole movie, there might be two, but the when every time I hear American Girl, like
Mhm.
I think of, you know, the girl driving singing the song just before she gets kidnapped by Buffalo Bill, you
Right.
know. So that to me is a song that's hard for me to get out of using it someplace else just for that reason. So we were really lucky on Nashville that all of this stuff was like brand new. Nobody had ever heard it. We had songs written specifically. We had, I would go and find unreleased songs. And what that, like, it was also the time period that I also got immersed in the story. I would go to the writer's room. I would sit in that writer's room and just listen to where the character's arc was going to go that season, or over 2 or 3 episodes, just so that I could get a sensibility of where they were going to, where they were starting and where they were ending. And is there something lyrically that can be brought to life by one of my characters singing that song? So that was the one thing that I felt that Nashville did so well, is that when you hear those songs, you're immediately brought back to that moment of what was happening to, Deacon, or what was happening to Raina, so
Yeah.
that to me is the quintessential perfection of music supervision, is when it also, whether it's a song we all know and love, or if it's a song that nobody's ever heard of, and it kind of takes you to a place that you are embedded or dedicated to this story and to what happens with this character. Like, I have a tough time watching films and shows where, like, yeah, I know there's always like bad characters and people that do dirty things and things like that, but like, if there's got to be something redeeming about that character in order for me to really fall in love with that character. They could do the worst things in the world to a person, but throughout this series or throughout the film, but as long as I find something that's a little bit redeeming about them, I can take that emotion that I feel about that person and really kind of dive into what song is going to really help describe who that person really and truly is. So to me, it's always super helpful to kind of really dive in with the writers of the scripts and, like, what is it that you want this character to say? Is even if it's blood and guts or whatever, there's still something that you can find in them that really kind of, musically you can bring out in them.
In filmmaking, we can use certain emotions are easy to telegraph, and it's obvious what the scene is about, and it's romantic or it's frightening. And have you ever had, I'm just curious about a moment where you've come across something where they're looking for a certain degree of uncertainty, where the feeling might not be set, or they want to play against type or against the expectations, something that was especially challenging for you to find the right exact music that you needed for that moment?
So for me, it's because I don't understand exactly what they want. So that just requires me to ask more questions, to dive deeper into it, so that I can really, like, I always say, like, hey, I'm the server of music. So I'm like the server that's got the platter. Here's the platter of music. Pick what you like. I love everything on the platter. Something's going to strike more in other people than in me. So that's how I figure out what tonality my director or my producers are kind of vibing with. And so sometimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's like, when you're testing spaghetti, is it done yet? You throw it up against the wall. If it sticks, great, it's done. If it doesn't stick, then it's not ready yet. And so that a lot of it is give and take, and just kind of trying to dive deeper into what it is exactly we're looking for. So and the thing of it is it never hurts my feelings. Like, I could love something tremendously, but then if it doesn't vibe with the director or the producer, then it doesn't really mean anything. So I it's not only knowing your character, but it's also knowing your producer and what they want, or their director, what they want that song to possibly do for them.
And you've done movies like Are You There, God? It's Margaret, which, you know, it sort of defines an era for so many people, of when the book came out. And, you know, it's a period film in a way. And so many of those songs are just incredible songs. Some of my favorite songs, you know, you have Stevie Wonder, Signs to the Delivered, I'm Yours, things like that, that are just so iconic, right?
Hmm.
So I wonder what the dialogue is, or George Harrison, you know, if you ever come across something that is perfect, it seems perfect, but maybe you yourself may have used it in a different project, or the
Yeah.
director comes up to you with this and you're saying, well, what about this? But it needs to hit that chord to strike that moment in time in history, you know, when it's supposed to evoke that era.
I mean, that was kind of like the tough thing about Daisy and Are You There, God? Because first off, they were happening at the same time. So I
Mhm.
was like immersed in 70s world. And you know, I would make a playlist of like, oh no, this is a Margaret song, this is a Daisy song, this is a Margaret song, this could possibly be a Daisy song too. And you know, we of course one of the things on Are You There, God is, you know, we wanted to kind of show that the more innocent side of the 70s because it was about a young girl. You know, so but you know, songs like Son of a Preacher Man, you know, when she goes in to do the 7 minutes of heaven in the closet, like that to me was like so freaking perfect because there's something sexy about it, but they're also talking about a preacher. So it's, you know, there's certain things that, you know, like, I don't know, for the main title of Are You There, God, I must have probably submitted 75 songs for just the opening of the movie.
Wow.
You know, we wanted something that was not super like known. And, you know, one of the things that my director said is, I don't want K Earth, you know, because there's certain songs on K Earth that get spun a million times. And she wanted me to dive deeper into finding songs that were a little bit more obscure. And so we found those spots, but then we also like, you know, Margaret's dad is kind of like he really fancied himself as being this cool guy with a really cool record collection. So putting Stevie Wonder up against him was perfect because, you know, he exuded, you know, like that time period. And, you know, with Margaret's mom, like we wanted to be more female driven with her. You know, like I like to try to talk about each of the characters and what each of the characters mean to the director. And you know, we did the same thing on Daisy. You know, I made playlists for each of the characters just to kind of like expose not only my actors to songs that their character would have been listening to, but also to my producer, you know, and showrunner who, you know, was like, I just want to hear stuff. And you know, there are things that like I really dig this kind of vibe. And yeah, you know, that would be something that Billy would have listened to. And I think that, you know, with it only helped the characters kind of build upon themselves. So um you know, that was just even more character develop. It wasn't even like that we were even necessarily going to use those songs. You know, it just was for giving some insight as to, you know, what the Six would have listened to in the Midwest versus what Daisy would have listened to in California.
I also wanted to talk to you first a little bit about stretching a little bit, when you've done, because you've got things like Sylvia's Love, where you have jazz and all this beautiful music and capturing the soul of a project like that. Um, how is that different to, let's say, The Flight Attendant, where you were including, well, great classics as well, but also some incredible new music, very contemporary music, and how does your process differ for these projects that stretch in different directions?
It's like getting to know the characters. Who was Cassie? You know, who was Sylvie? Like you know, what did she listen to? You know, and the thing that I love about my job the most is the research. It's really digging in and going, you know, like what is it about this song or what, you know, what time period? I mean, I think that's one of the things that I love about the fact that I do have a pretty diverse uh, uh projects, in the sense that I don't do one specific kind of music. And that's just because I love the research part of it. I love like diving into that world of jazz. I love diving into, like In a League of Their Own. It's all like 40s music. But then there's this female empowerment side of it. Like, and we were able to stretch outside of the 1940s to kind of show, just how ballsy these women were. And, so I, I love the fact that I get to explore all kinds of music. And the research part of it is really the fun part. It's like looking and finding stuff online, reading books. I have so many books. You can see I have a shelf of CDs here, and that starts from the 1800s all the way until now. And, you know, the they're all super fun. Like I love, I mean, gosh, I've even done hip hop things, and I don't even particularly love hip hop, but it really is kind of just diving into that world, and really just kind of figuring out like who was the who, and who was the one that maybe was the who that everybody started like ripping off, and that guy didn't quite make it, like I love kind of diving in and digging up that stuff. That's my favorite thing.
Now, you've been privileged in the sense that you've had some great projects that you worked on, but also in the sense that a lot of those projects are very music centric, in a way that obviously not everybody gets to work on something where the music is the star, basically. So in Daisy Jones and the Six, I was wondering how, I mean, I know you got involved early in the process. So tell us a little bit about how you become, as a music supervisor, you end up becoming part of a group of people, creating the characters, creating their tastes, creating their personality, their musical personalities, and the trajectory that they will have throughout the story. I understand that they had music camp, band camp, and everything, and that you were there for it. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think the producers, I kind of have to give it to the producers. They brought me in I was the first one hired. I was the one that gave them the list of music producers, of who to talk to about who would be writing the music for Daisy Jones and the Six. And while that was all, kind of happening, the other part of my job is getting these actors ready to portray a real band. And so while my executive music producer is writing songs and sending demos, and we're listening, and yes, we love this. Can you tweak this? Can you tweak that? I was also part of the casting, finding who our characters were. And, being one of those voices in the room that said, he can do this. I know that he can make this happen. I mean, obviously, as a music supervisor, we have lots of tricks, that we can do when it comes to like shooting somebody who doesn't really know how to play piano, or, shooting somebody who doesn't know how to play guitar. We know how to do that kind of stuff. But I knew that in order for like my goal on this project was really I wanted everyone to believe and feel like, holy shit, did I miss this band in the 70s? I mean, did I honestly miss them? Because I wanted everyone to believe that they were a real band. And, and I talked to one of my line producers, and literally was just kind of like, I need 4 months with them to create a band camp, to get them to learn how to do and be a band in order for this to be believable. And, it was an ongoing kind of process of adjusting and readjusting. I mean, not only for COVID, but just also like, we didn't cast Billy until the very last minute, almost like, a month before we were going to start shooting. And we cast a person that didn't know how to play guitar and, said that he didn't know how to sing. So And then we also had like 27 pre-records we had to get done before then. So it really was a masterful, like, record keeping cheerleader kind of role, in the sense of, oh, the lead prop guy on all of those music, on all of the instruments, would come and go, what do you think of this for Billy to hold? I'm like, oh my God, I love that. Or, like, that would be great. What year is it? Like, it was involved in so many things and so many aspects on a project that, is like the dream job of a music supervisor, because I was that involved in everything, and felt like, I was seriously a part of the team. Like, I had so many people on set were like, oh, what do you do again? Like, what's your role? Like, why are you sitting here? And it's like, oh, I'm a music supervisor. And they're like, oh, I've never been on any show where the music supervisor shows up, So, I mean, we're not typically on set in these kinds of instances. But, on a show like Daisy, there was no other choice but to be there, and just to make sure that everything looked real. And, I had a guitar coach on, because I don't play guitar, had a guitar coach on set with me also, just to watch the hands, to make sure that everything looked correctly. Like, I could watch and see, what Karen was playing. And obviously, because I'm a singer, we're Billy and Daisy, lip syncing correctly or singing correctly, all of that stuff. That was my part of the job of being on set, and just, the camaraderie of the band and how they looked. Were their legs spread apart enough? With holding the guitar, all of those things that kind of wrapped up what the 70s were. And, again, just kind of brought forward a stronger authenticity of the show.
I'm curious, had you read the book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they didn't even have any scripts yet when I got hired. I mean, and I don't even think the book was out yet. I think I read a manuscript first of the story. And of course, after I read it, I just went, oh, holy shit, this is going to be huge. Just huge to do as a music supervisor. Like,
right.
How are we going to really be able to pull all of this off,
And now how do you go from that to look at us now, and to seeing the whole thing finished and watching it for the first time edited? How does that feel?
I mean, like, that's the thing that, like, I was so proud of my band. I mean, they put in so much hard work, and I knew, as I was watching them throughout band camp, that once they got on in the mode of how actors are, once they're on set, and I knew that it was going to be poured on even more so than what I was visually seeing in band camp. And so it, for me to kind of see them come to life was probably the proudest thing I think I've ever experienced on something. Just kind of, they were my kids. So to me, it was just kind of like watching them come alive as Daisy Jones and the Six was like the freaking greatest thing on the planet.
Yes, and to know that you have a pivotal role in the creation of something like that must feel amazing.
Yeah.
So no, congratulations. Very well deserved Emmy nomination for it. I know you've won a bunch of awards in the past, and you've had such a great career. So I'm just rooting for you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Andres. It was a great talk.
Best of luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.